In this video on Google Sheets, I'm going to show you how to use some spreadsheet functions. We're going to first create a series of numbers through various different ways. We're going to go over some very basic functions like average, mode, median, standard deviation, minimum, maximum. I'm going to show you how to use formula help, and I'm going to show you how to show and hide your formulas with the Control tilde toggle. Let's get started. Let's say I'm trying to do a problem here where I need to have the numbers 1 through 10 in this first column here. Now, of course, there's the long way of doing it, where you have to type them all manually. Not too hard. That can be a problem when you're trying to go to stuff like 100, or other things where, let's say, you're trying to count by sevens, and so on and so forth, and pretty soon you're going to have to start remembering those times tables you learned when you were a kid. That can be kind of a problem, especially when you're getting up to higher stuff. Well, there is an easier way. Let's say I just want to put the numbers 1 through 10. Well, what I want to do is I'm going to show number 1 and then number 2, and then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight both of those cells. Now, when I have two cells highlighted, Google Sheets is going to try to figure out the relationship between those two. And what it's going to do is if I grab this little box down here and drag it down, it's figured out the relationship and it's continued that relationship down. So now it's automatically numbered 1 through 10. I could go further, 1 through 20 if necessary. I could do that with other things as well. Let's say I want to count by 5s instead, like 5, 10, 15, 20. So I could do this, 5 and 10, and it's going to figure out the relationship between there. And if I drag it down, it's now counting by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, etc., etc. Could do that for 10s as well. Highlight those two, drag them down, and it's now incrementing by 10s. Now, you sometimes might want to do something maybe like the binary expansion, 1, 2, 4, 8, 6, etc., etc., etc. Now, if I just tried 1 and 2, and I said, okay, well, 2 is 2 times greater than 1, and I tried to do that, it thinks that I'm trying to add by 1. So I want to be a little bit more explicit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 1, and then I'm going to equal sign here. I'm going to say A1 times 2. Now, I'm just going to select this one cell here, and if I drag it down, 4, 8, 16, 32, and what's happening is it's taking this and it's multiplying each cell above it by that particular number. So I could take this out and I could expand it out as far as I absolutely need. So that's just another way in doing it, and by entering that equation there, I'm a little bit more explicit. One thing to be aware of, you only want to drag down the one that actually has the equation. That's the one that gives you the expansion. Watch what happens if I tried to do this. 1, 2, 2, 4, 3. It's confused. It doesn't really know what to do. It's trying to figure it out. So if you're just trying to expand this, you just want to expand that format, you can pull it down. One other thing I want to show you is kind of a famous story about a mathematician named Carl Friedrich Gauss. When he was a kid, his teacher gave him the task, add up all the numbers between 1 and 100. Well, he came up with a really fast way to do it, and I want to demonstrate that. So he did 1, 2, 3. He essentially just did this expansion that I have here, but he expanded it all the way down to 50. And then he figured out, well, I could also do kind of split the numbers 1 to 100 in half. So watch what happens here. I do 100, 99, and I could even increment these down. So I have in this first column here, 1 through 50 counting up, 100 through 51 counting down. He came up with the idea, well, I can just sum these two together, and they work out to be 101. If I was to drag this down, you'll notice that every single one of these pairs of numbers works out to be 101. Well, he then essentially did a count and figured out that there were 50 of those numbers. So we could just do 101 times 50. So he figured out the sum of all the numbers 1 to 100 is 5,050. Granted, there's lots of other ways we could do it, but I think this is a really cool demonstration of how to auto-increment numbers and do a simple calculation to figure out what it is. Let's try out a couple different functions. I'm going to go to my Amazon cart, and we're going to try a couple different other functions that we have. Average, mode, median, standard deviation, minimum, and maximum. I've already shown you that I can do sums, but let's try something else. Let's try the average of all these different prices here. So I'm going to hit the equal sign, and I'm going to type average. And like before, it's looking for a range. Well, I'm going to make it easy. I'm going to select all those here, B2 to B10. Of course, to make things better, I always like to do the infinite vertical range because it will account for any future addition. So let's just do average of B2 to B. You'll notice now that it's given me that average. If I was to change this, maybe delete that, you'll notice that it drops my average. So that's average. Another one that I could do is median. So it's going to find the middle of all those prices there. So I'm going to equal sign median, and I want to do B2 to B. Let's try standard deviation, telling me how far things are from the average. So let's do STDEV for standard deviation of B2 to B, and it's now giving me the standard deviation for that. Should also do minimum. It's telling me the minimum price is $12.75, and I could also do maximum, where the maximum price on there is $399.95. This is an extremely partial list of average, median, standard deviation, min, max. I could also do mode if I wanted, if I had more data there. You will find the complete list of all of these in the attachments or in the description, but these are some of the most commonly occurring ones. One thing you'll notice that as I was actually typing something, a little window popped up to try to give me help. So let's try this again. I'll try my average one. As soon as I started there, it dropped down this little window here, and I have this option to expand. This is going to give me a lot of help for this. It's going to give me a summary of it. Here's what average does. It returns the numerical average. It's going to show me value 1 is the first value or range, additional values, and then it's got this little link that says learn more about average. It's going to pop up a little bit more. It's going to give me the syntax. It's going to give me some notes. Also, some additional little links, something else that might be related, and it's even going to give you some examples. I can't stress how important and helpful this Google Docs editor's help really is. Every single time you start typing out a function, let's try a really complicated one. Wait, whoa, you don't know about HLOOKUP? Well, if you click right here, learn more about it, it's going to direct you to some information on it. It's going to give you examples, all those different things. So anytime you're typing something, it's going to pop it up there, and I have the option to expand that, or if you know what you're doing, you can even close that down. But very, very handy to use that formula help. Anything you're doing, median, drop down help, going to give me more information if you want. Then click on this, learn more about it, and if you want, you can even jump right to a new window where you're going to go to their main thing, and you can see here's a list of some more of their different functions. Last thing I want to show you is how to show and hide your formulas. So right now we're looking at the sheet as necessary. But one thing that I think is incredibly important is the showing and hiding of formulas. So here are the keys that you're going to use. You can use Control plus the tilde button. That is located above your tab, and if you hit that, so I'm just leaving that there so you can see it, if you hit that, you're going to see things change a lot. Take a look at that. All of a sudden, this is unreadable. But it's not all gibberish. It's trying to be helpful here and showing you what's behind those numbers. And I can kind of bounce back and forth between it. Let's take a look at right here. So I got this Lego Star Wars AT-AT, and I came up with this number here because it's the price times the number of units. B2 times C2. I toggle that, and all of a sudden I can see exactly what my formula is. Equals B2 times C2. This one is B3 times C3. My tax is going to be D2 times E2. So you can not only look at these numbers, this is a really quick way without having to click into each cell and seeing what the equation is, to toggle it and see where these numbers come from. If you recall, I set the tax rate, everything here is going to be equal to H8. Upper right hand corner, you can see all these numbers. I1 is going to be the sum of D2 to D. So this toggle, very, very handy. You'll notice that where I have these instructions for how to make a view only copy, it's going to change it. It's actually, if you look through each cell, there's a function called the hyperlink. You don't need to worry about that if you just use the Control-K shortcut, but this is how Google Sheets has to have it in there so it knows how to interpret it. So again, that's the control plus tilde. You'll notice that some things don't change. No matter how much I toggle that, those aren't going to change. That means that those don't have an equation in there. Those are just a basic text. If I was to look at like my Star Wars Legos and hit the Control tilde toggle, nothing really changes here because I didn't have any equations. The only time you're going to see equations is when you are actually doing some calculations, as I was doing with the Amazon cart. This is a really fast way to troubleshoot any problems you might have with your equations and to really see what's behind where all those numbers came from.